In today's video, we're going to be talking about the new Pokemon games and how Tencent has fully pulled funding from Highgaurd, or the fact that Highgaurd has Tencent backing them, which is a big deal that they didn't really show in the beginning. My name is the Techno Jelly. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And now let's get straight into the video. Starting with the fact that Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves was revealed by Pokemon during their 30th anniversary stream. They did show other things, but what most people are interested is in the actual new games coming exclusively to Switch 2 in 2027. I was not entirely sure if they're going to go exclusivity towards the Switch 2, but it looks like they decided Switch 2 only, which is interesting because there's still a lot of Switch 1s out there comparatively to Switch 2, and so the fact that they did go to only Switch 2 is interesting. But once we actually start seeing the game itself, you kind of understand, because the game looks so much better than Scarlet and Violet and Pokemon ZA. It's the graphics, while still not good, don't get me wrong, it's just so much better, at least the backgrounds and the environments around the Pokemon models. And just that fact itself is probably why they chose Switch 2, because let's be real, that engine was bad, but like it also was slightly being hindered by Switch 1, not because Switch 1 is inherently a bad console, because there are a lot of games that do crazy things with the Switch 1. It's just that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, I think, don't have enough time to really try to actually make the game environment look good comparatively to the Pokemon models, because they spend so much time on the actual Pokemon themselves, which, makes sense considering the game is called Pokemon. And I do honestly agree with them, because like the main reason people play these games is to use the Pokemon, look at the Pokemon, and do the Pokemon battles. And honestly, most people don't care what the game looks like outside of that. As long as the Pokemon look good and it's fun to play, most people, that's all they care about. Which, completely understand. I personally disagree. I do wish the Pokemon games did look better and function better and played better. But it looks like this is at least a step in the right direction for Pokemon, because the Switch 2 is more powerful than the Switch 1, obviously. And looking at it, it hopefully will be a smoother experience. I personally don't own a Switch 2 yet, and I haven't played a Pokemon game since Sword and Shield, basically. So I personally won't be playing them, but I hope for the Pokemon fans that this game is a lot better, at least in terms of performance-wise. And we also got a new look at the 3 starters. The 3 starters look great, honestly. I love the angry bird grass type and the dog fire type. I've already seen to the Twitter community be really either happy or sad, depending on the fire dog, because if the fire dog stands up eventually, I'm sure they'll be very disappointed. I hope the fire dog myself just stays a dog, or like on 4 legs, because man, has there been a lot of problems. It's like the weed cat in the last Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, when they stood up eventually, and everyone was super sad that in the evolution that they stand up, and where to the fact where a lot of people just made it so they never evolve, which, I understand coming from some of them. I do love it. It is kind of funny to me that I've been playing a lot of Escape from Duckov, and the grass type looks like one of the ducks from Escape from Duckov, and it amuses me greatly, because it's just something that I've been playing a lot of, and I'm like, that kind of looks like one of the ducks, which is really funny. And I think just like the Pokemon in general look a lot better in Winds and Waves, simply because, one, obviously the Switch 2 is more powerful. And I think the exclusivity is helping there. They don't have to worry about the Switch 1 under it, because I think that was a big problem with Legends ZA, is that the Switch 1 version of the game chugged so hard, and it was simply not ready for it. But the Switch 2 version was fine. Like, obviously the graphics were still not very good, but the game performed fine. And I'm really hoping for Winds and Waves that the game's performance is going to be better. From what we know, they haven't really said anything in terms of like the actual gameplay. We don't know if the gameplay is going to be like Scarlet and Violet with the open worldness. I don't necessarily see them changing it too much, because of the way that they're doing like, the winds and the waves. I feel like that's going to be a lot of overworld travel. So I feel like they're going to keep the open world stuff. And I'm interested to see if they're going to be going anywhere else with it. I'm curious if they are going to go with the whole level scaling thing, because they didn't go with level scaling, if I remember correctly, for Scarlet and Violet. So obviously there was a correct way to go in Scarlet and Violet, but I'm interested to see if there is going to be level scaling or not. I don't think they will have it, because I just don't think they're willing to do it. And, hey, it's for the Pokemon veterans who want to try to challenge themselves, they can just try to go to a higher level before needing to go to a higher level. I'm curious how the traversal options are going to be, and I really hope you don't get the legendaries right away like you do in Scarlet and Violet. I don't like how you got the legendaries right away because of the mounts. I like the legendaries being near the end, or at least you don't get them right away. If there's a build up to actually getting them instead of being seduced by a sandwich like in Scarlet and Violet. It really held that back, in my opinion. And I really hope that the tutorial for this game isn't like the school section, because watching people play that was painful, and I couldn't imagine playing that. It took so long for that to go. And I hope that they at least shorten it a bit or make it something a little more meaningful, but we'll see. It does seem like they also are keeping the Pokemon are in the world as well, so you can go up to them and try to catch them instead of doing the random grass encounters, which I know is a hit or miss depending on who you are. I personally don't mind. I think it's an interesting difference, but it is still, in my mind, cool to see the Pokemon in the world, because that's also one weird thing in the older Pokemon games, that, Pokemon didn't actually exist outside of the grass, and you didn't really ever see them outside of battles and or the cutscenes, I guess. But it's cool to see the Pokemon in the actual world of Pokemon outside, in the games at least. Obviously, we've seen Pokemon in like the anime and stuff like that, but in the games, we rarely actually saw the Pokemon outside of the battles, which is something I didn't actually really realize until Scarlet and Violet came out. It's like, oh yeah, Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet were kind of like the first ones to have Pokemon in the world that you could interact with. Now, there were couples in the old games, but like it was a different thing. It was a interesting thing. And I guess some of the old games that you could have them follow you around, but there was only one at a time. And not all of the games did that, so it's still a relatively different feeling to have the Pokemon be there. And I'm also curious to see if with that, like, are there going to be different mechanics again with the how the training works and or anything like that. I don't think they'd change that part too much, honestly, because they will be doing, I feel like they're just normal things that they do when it comes to that. But overall, I hope for the Pokemon fans it does a good time with this. I am glad it is still going to be 2027. I was slightly worried it was going to be this year, but then I remembered that Legends ZA came out this year, so they do alternating at least. So technically, this game might have had 2 years of development, which is insane for Pokemon, because normally they have very little time to actually develop them. Even though 2 years is still not long enough, in my opinion, but you never know. Moving on from a franchise that is making so much money to a franchise that literally lost its money, Highgaurd has not been doing very well. I've made some videos on it before. I've played Highgaurd myself when it came out, and I personally haven't played it since then. A lot like most of the player base, they hover around 500 players daily, if that, at this point. And because of this, Tencent, which is their main backer, has pulled its funding from the game. According to multiple sources, Bloomberg included, as well as Inside Gaming. And two big things from this for me. One, why did we not know this was a Tencent project to begin with? Because at the beginning, they were supposed to be this indie company. And while technically, yeah, you are not a AAA developer technically, but if you have the backing of Tencent, I feel like you are not an indie company. Not what you are trying to portray yourselves as, because they're trying to portray themselves as is like, one of those ragtag group of developers that made a company because they got sick and tired of the higher ups. But it seems like the higher ups at Wild Entertainment, which are the developers of Highgaurd, have the same problems because from at least what we get, that a lot of the reasons that this game has failed and fallen apart is because the leadership doesn't really know what it's doing, it seems like, or felt like they're just gonna do another Apex Legends, which is just simply not gonna happen. There's a reason why Apex Legends was a lightning in a bottle, because it's never gonna happen again. And it was also before the Battle Royale fatigue. I feel like people forget that Apex Legends was only really the third big Battle Royale when it came out. And the only other two were PUBG and Fortnite, because Warzone hasn't happened yet because it came out in 2020 and Apex Legends came out in 2019. So like the fatigue of, or it wasn't even Warzone actually in 2020. It was the Black Ops one in between that. So like what the COD ones haven't even happened yet. And the Battle Royale fatigue and the shooter fatigue hasn't really hit yet for Apex specifically. And it's also a different take on the genre of Battle Royale because no one had really done the heroes yet for Battle Royale. But for Highgaurd, the fatigue is hitting hard, and no one cares about a hero shooter tactics game right now because the audience just doesn't care anymore, which is very obvious since everyone just left. They tried it, don't get me wrong, but like myself, but I have no want to go back to it. And unfortunately for them, I think this is going to be the end. I'm going to be surprised if I am still reporting on this game in the future months to come, other than the fact of me saying that it's shutting down. Because technically, the game servers are still up, but apparently there's less than 20 people remaining at Wildlight Entertainment. And I just don't see them being able to pull this from anything out of their hat from this, because no other investor is going to go for them anymore. Like, unless they somehow become self-funded, I don't see them ever making any money on this because no one's going to be willing to play this game. Everyone assumed it was dead on arrival, and while I think that is harsh, it was still basically true. No one was really willing to commit to this game, which once again, I do think is on fault of some of the gamers. I do think the gamers themselves just didn't believe in this game, so it was doomed from the start, unfortunately, and whether that's the game's fault or not, that's what happened. And it just seems that there's going to be no chance for this game to come back at all, basically, because I don't know where the funding is going to come from. And I don't know how this studio is going to keep the lights on without anything happening. And overall, I just feel like it is one of those cautionary tales of don't get too cocky and thinking just because you made one good game in a way doesn't mean you can do it a second time. Now, I'm not faulting these people for wanting to leave EA to make their own game, but I am saying that you shouldn't just assume you're going to get the same amount of success, because the title of devs from or worked on insert game just doesn't have the same hit or appeal as it used to. Because like I feel like every other game is now from devs from certain game, and then the game just doesn't work because it's only one or two people from that team, or it's like some people from a different section of the team. It's like every time someone says from the creators of Left 4 Dead, I just don't believe them anymore because it's just not worth it. And I just am sick and tired personally of seeing based, or not based on, but worked from the devs of insert game title. Stop caring about the past. No one cares about the past, unfortunately. The people who care about the past are still playing those games and they're not moving on. And I understand the want for that, but the thing is especially for Highgaurd specifically, is that from the creators of Apex Legends and Titanfall, it just makes it so people realize they're not playing Titanfall 3, which Titanfall 3 is never going to happen, don't get me wrong, but it just reminds people of things that aren't going to happen. And it's unfortunate. That is it for today's video. Thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you dislike it. I completely understand. Comment down below what you guys think about the Pokemon stuff or the Highgaurd stuff. I'd love to hear your comments about it in the comments down below. If you'd like to support me directly, please go to my Patreon at patreon.com/thetechnojelly. You join all of these nice people in the credits. as well as a once a month live stream that we do. You can go vote on it if you would do so and join the memberships. If you would like to support me even more directly, but you would want something as a product, I have a partnership with Poggers.shop linked in the description. You can use code TechnoJelly for 10% off of any of their products, whether it be their shaker cups or their energy mix, hydration mix, or sleep aid mix. Once again, 10% off with using code TechnoJelly. If you'd like to follow me on other platforms, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye, everyone.